I've never skied before. I mean, that seems like a lot of money that could go towards food is what my mama said. But anyway, that's really what she said to me. She was like, they want you to do what now? How much is this? And I was like, yeah, man, that's what they said. I got to go ski with them. So.
This podcast is all about you, your journey in music, and how you got to where you are now.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Of course. First off, talk to me about where were you born and raised?
Oh, that's a complicated question because I'm a Navy brat. So
okay.
Right. So that kind of gives you a lot already. But I was born in New Jersey, in Plainfield, New Jersey. I lived in Scotch Plains until I was like 8 or 9, and then we moved to like Elizabeth City, and then we bounced to Virginia, Georgia. It was always like military or work based, like okay, well, the job is here, go here, kind of a thing. We didn't have a lot, kind of a thing, but we worked it out. And I ended up in, let's see, Cali in like when I was like junior year of high school. So like the first part of high school I was in St. Louis.
Oh wow.
Which is, I know, right? It's just like all over the place. But the first part of high school I was in St. Louis, and that's actually the place where I started really going, wait a second, what's this like producing thing? Like I knew I always wanted to do it like forever. Like I knew who Quincy Jones, Roddy Jerkins, Missy Elliott, Timbaland, and the Neptunes. Plus I lived in Virginia Beach for so long, and they went to Princess Anne High School, the Neptunes. So like
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I had cousins going to the same high school as the Neptunes before they were the Neptunes. And it's just kind of like wild to think about, like how people just are people and start somewhere kind of thing.
Right.
But yeah, so yeah, that's what I guess that's a synopsis of like going from East Coast to Midwest to West Coast. It also kind of accounts for why my sound is so all over the place. Because I got hit with like, I was in St. Louis and I was 14 when Nelly popped off. So,
oh, wow. Okay.
And when you live in St. Louis, you hear everything that no one else in the country hears by Nelly and the St. Lunatics and anybody associated with that whole camp. So I know songs that a song popped in my head the other day and I was like, what? I haven't thought about that in like, not going to say how many years, but
right.
Yeah, you know, okay.
That's cool. That is really cool. So what made you decide, you said when you were in St. Louis, you decided that you wanted to be a producer. And I was in a lot of choir and theater and stuff in high school. And honestly, the school in St. Louis was probably the first high school, Hazelwood Central was probably the first high school that I went to where I had like teachers who kind of recognized that there was something a little more than just I'm humming there. Cause I would just like sneak into the choir. This is like an MO of mine. Sneak into some choir or band room, see if no one's there, and then play on the piano for too many hours. And then someone finds me and goes, who are you? Why are you here? That sounds kind of good. And that was like a regular MO. And I had a teacher there, Mr. Arnold, who kind of started like going, wait, tell me more. I feel like you want to do more with this music, because I would just hear all these parts all the time and the harmonies, and he'd be trying to teach everybody the harmonies, and it was like me and two other people were like, no, not like that, like this. And he was just like, okay. And he had this like Yamaha Clavinova keyboard that had like a 16-step sequencer in it. And I would sit there at like 13, 14 for hours after school and just make beats on it. Like, he was like, how did you, that has that on there? I was like, yeah, there's kits and everything. You can like play out parts. You can even do a basic little mix on it and everything. It had like compressors and everything in there, and like an 8-bit screen that you were like moving like the frequencies and crossfaders up and down. It was pretty hilarious. But It's also how the bug got bit. And yeah, that's where the bug came from. Yeah. Wow. Okay. And from there, like you said, you're in chorus and choir and stuff growing up.
Yeah, that was the choir room too. Like it was weird because I grew up in like, before then, we had like grown up where we grew up, and we didn't have schools that had choir rooms that looked like this. So it was like, we went there and they had like that choir room had quad 8-inch speakers on either side of the room. So altogether 8 speakers, and it was like a 500-watt system, and you could like play anything through it. And like, it was like, wait, what? This is, y'all have this? And it was, yeah, it was wild. Because I mean, the middle school I came from before I went to that high school in Norfolk, Virginia, was a different vibe. Let's say that. That wasn't the vibe. That wasn't the vibe. So it was just like really cool to like have this opportunity finally, like once in my life, to like sit back and like just be there and be in the room and like experience like school and music and like in that way. And I remember we went to I was in the theater. He chose me to be in like a special group called like a theater magical choir. Mm-hmm. And we like went to this thing called the Winter Park National Choir Festival and like won. And I was like, we were singing in French. He had to bring like a French teacher in. I was like, what is happening right now? Like what is this high school? I've never been to a school like this before. But yeah, that's really St. Louis. I never really thought about it that much, but that's kind of where it all pops off. Cause then I met my friend in high school who taught me how to use Fruity Loops, which was a demo beta stage, not Fruity Loops 1 thing. It hadn't even reached 1 yet. It was beta. This is Fruity Loops beta, not FL Studio, nothing like that. We were click, 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 step sequencing, and you had your FL like crunchy, juicy fattener, and like you just were making beats on there, and we were like doing like modulations on there. And I remember when I figured out how you could modulate, and it was really wild. But I had like a Hewlett Packard that I think my phone right now that I'm using probably is 40 times at least faster than that thing. Right, it had 4 gigs of RAM, and it was like, it had like a 100 gig hard drive. I want to say it is what it was. Yeah, that's it. That's what we were working with, making beats.
Wow. That is cool. Well, how did that change when you moved to California? Didn't you say you moved to California in 11th grade?
When I was like 16, I moved to Cali, and then that is when I discovered. Well, when I was in St. Louis, before I would go there, I was in St. Louis, and I started going to Guitar Center every day, like from sun up to sundown, and I would just sit in the pro audio section, the speaker section, and the guitar section, and they would, to the point where they'd be like, hey, can you tell that kid to just turn everything off in there? Because I had like SCSI discs and Zip Logic drives, and I was like connecting from like a Roland MV8000 to like a MPC to like the Triton, and like I was going in, like I was just making full beats, and I didn't even realize that those dudes are using me to sell stuff, because they would just send people back there, be like, yeah, talk to them, they know about the stuff, and then then suddenly they're making a big sale, and I was like, oh, cool. No, kid, no, it's not cool. Like it's not it, but it was fun, and I learned a lot at Guitar Center, which is really hilarious actually when I think about it. But
that's cool. Yeah, they could have just said, hey, you can't use our equipment.
Yeah, but you just let me sit there and make beats.
So then you get to California.
Yeah.
So this was still in St. Louis, right? The Guitar
Yeah,
Center?
But that was St. Louis. And now if I'm in California, I'm in high school, junior year, and I joined a choir there, which is okay, but that school wasn't as nice of a high school. It was kind of, honestly, it was a really cool like group of people, and California high schools are big open campuses and like don't have like gates, and you can walk off for lunch. So that part was cool, but the extracurricular stuff wasn't as robust. And which was fine for me, because like, I'll be honest with you, the St. Louis school was the first time I had ever experienced a high school that you could like that was I went skiing because we went on that trip for that magical choir thing, and I was like, what is skiing? What do you mean? You do what on snow now? And like I didn't know this is a thing people do regularly, apparently. I was like, okay, sure. I've never skied before. I mean, that seems like a lot of money that could go towards food, is what my mama said. But anyway, she was like, they want you to do what now? How much is this? And I was like, yeah, man, that's what they said. I got to go ski with them. So I wasn't mad or anything, but it was just like, this seems interesting. But anyway, so then get to California, and I start work. When I left St. Louis, I had worked with a label for the first time. Like, it was the first time I wrote for an artist as a songwriter. I was like 14, and it was this local label, and they had some pretty good pull. They would get like write-ups in like the local newspaper a lot and things like that. And he like kind of let me write songs for this girl, this artist that he had. God, I think her name was Janelle or something like that. It was so long ago. But anyway, but it was kind of how I got my writing chops. And then going to California meant I started going with my mom to like the Bay a lot, because we moved to Central Cali and like the 559, like Fresno area.
Yeah.
And my mom was in tech. And so she would like drive up to the Bay a lot, and I would go up to the Bay and hang out with people and like just kind of like go to the like honestly. Well, it's fine now. I can't get in trouble for it. Sneak into the new parish because I always look too old for my age, and like watch like bands play and shit. And so that was really fun. And then I started working at this when I turned like 17 or 18, which wasn't much longer, because it was junior year. I went to the College of the Sequoias in Visalia, California, and there's like a dude named Kim Cameron there who's like this like rock legend engineer who was like the dude who ran the MIDI synthesis production program.
Oh,
and
wow.
I was like, what? And yeah, and that was fun. He embarrassed me one time though, because I was a cocky kid and I was like, I know how to do that. And I went up to a mixing board and pressed the thing and did the whole I could hear it, nod my head thing. And he stared at me for a long time and then hit the assign button. And then it just blared out of the speakers and it made me jump. He was like, you know, maybe you should sit back and listen and learn sometimes. I was like, yep, cool. I'm gonna go stand in the back of the class. I was nodding so hard, like turning knobs and faders. It was a very humbling moment, if you will. But yeah, sure. And I started learning a lot there and getting into Pro Tools a lot. I had already been getting into Logic a lot, which I think it was at I work on Logic kind of exclusively now, and I think it was at Logic 4.1 when I came in. And just when you still had to route and send stuff in the background. Can you tell that I'm a nerd? Okay.
I love it. That's cool. So you then like, so you're picking up all this information along the way. Then when do you how do you break into your own music career?
I met a guy who was like who went to the school too. You know, you always end up meeting that person at school who you kind of like who you go, oh yeah, we kind of see eye to eye, and like our musical tastes were similar. And I'm gonna be honest with you, until like in the last 5 years, I didn't really understand always completely that I like really was good at this. I don't know how else to say that. Like I come from a family that we're really like pushers, and like, you know, you have to like get it right and be very good at the thing and like the whole thing. So the energy wasn't like, you're amazing. That wasn't always the vibe. It was always like, push harder. That's great. Do more. Okay. And so that's kind of how I always kind of lived and have been living forever, kind of thing, if you will. But he was like one of the first people who I sat in a studio and was just like, I always thought I would sit at a drum machine or a piano and think, oh no, people are going to think this sounds bad. But then that day I went to the studio in Visalia with this dude, and I was in there and I started zoning out, and I turned around and there's like 20 people in the room. And I didn't even really know how to use the equipment he was using, but it was all of the principles were similar to the stuff that I had learned in Guitar Center and at that studio in St. Louis. So I was like, all right, I'm just figure it out. And I somehow was doing that. And I was like, man, I wonder if this sounds any good. Turn around, because you're like nervous. And like, you know, you do the don't turn around because you're too nervous to turn around to see what's happening behind you.
Yeah. Okay.
And he was like, yo, do you like make beats? I was like, kind of. I mean, I guess. He was like, you don't have a studio or anything? I was like, no. I mean, I work on Fruity Loops on my computer sometimes, but like, it was like sometimes. Like, I didn't even have like an interface or anything at home. And he was just like, yo, you got to come through more. And so I started going through more and like playing keys on stuff. And like I would like do percussion on stuff and sing on stuff a lot and write. And like, engineering kind of always made sense to me. I wouldn't say at that time I was like super versed in it, obviously, because I was like 19, 20, but like, it just made sense to like, it should sound like this kind of thing. And I didn't realize that I was making sense. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you're like, this seems like this makes sense to me. But I also had been in rooms when I would listen to people mix at that point a couple of times where people were not feeling how the mix was going. And I was like, this doesn't sound right, kind of a thing. And I was just like, oh, okay. And they were like, well, if you think you can do it better, than try. I was like, I'll try. I don't know if I could. It just feels like it could sound different. And I did. And he was like, yo, you know how to mix? I was like, I don't know, maybe. I don't know.
Sure.
Like, sure. Like my family is a musical family. And I guess I grew up listening, like, my grandmother was like super into jazz. And so, and sadly, but also not completely sadly, I know everybody's opinion is different on this. She listened to smooth jazz and acid jazz a lot. And which, you know, yeah. And so I have a big affinity for like the Dave Causes and David Sanborns of the world.
Okay.
Dave Koz, David Sanborn, Sade, and then like Anita Baker. And then my mom, though, on the flip side, was like more of a rebel. So she is where I got the Tori Amos Boy for a Pele, which was like my favorite album. And I was like 9. Okay.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, like I played that tape to death. Hello, Mr. Zebra all day. Like really, like, and I used to like just walk around the house, this little black kid going, hello, Mr. Zebra, can I have your sweater? Cause Mr. And my mom was like, do you understand that you, I guess, okay. But she was the one who played Stone Temple Pilots for me. And I was like, this is great. What is this?
This is great.
I was like, it sound, she played that. She played Soundgarden, Paula Cole, Tiger Lily. Where do I get this feeling, this bright red feeling, this tiger lily in my mouth? It wants to grow to 10 feet tall. That was like, I was 11 going, what am I listening to? What's happening right now? And then I would secretly listen to the songs where she cussed a lot in my bedroom. And like, you know, yeah.
Headphones on?
Yep, yeah.
I used to do that.
And then you go, you do it, you look around, you know?
Yeah. Like, why do you listen to every other record through the speakers, but those few songs are in your headphones?
I haven't any idea what you're talking about, basically. That was always my response. I was like, what? And my sister, she was funny because she was my sibling. So she would like try to like, ooh, you listen to that bad song again? I was like, no, I don't know what you're talking about. She's also like very musically inclined. The whole family is. My sister, like guitar player, rapper, singer, and
wow.
another queer person as well. So like it's very interesting to like come up and be around music so much because my mom loved music. My grandmother was an opera singer for a really long time. And she played me Leontine Price for the first time because I'd always listened to opera music and heard a lot of white folks, but she was like, you need to know that there's a legendary Black woman opera singer that you should know about. And I just remember the first time I heard her voice and I was just like, whoa, what is this? Because like you grow up, and I used to like sneak and listen to country music a lot because everybody's like, why do you listen to that white people music? I was like, listen, this is just R&B music for white people. That's all this is. I heard, the first time I heard Let Me Let Go by Faith Hill, and I think it's Vince Gill is what his name is. I was like, what is this song? Those little, and y'all, and the thing I never got about country, but I just loved it, the meowing guitars. And it was just like, what is happening? Just feels like a thing. Like it just felt like something. And then the beat dropped and it was a whole different beat than I expected. And I was like, this is interesting. And then I dug deeper into that. And then suddenly I was into country music. I don't know, what's a genre? Anyway, that's fine.
Right. Well, you say you remixed that Reba song.
Right. But I grew up listening to that song. Like me and my mom and my sister watched the Reba show and I
love the Reba show.
It was so good. And like, she was a single mom with 2 kids and we would always sing the song and it was like kind of cheesy, but it was like, it resonated, you know? And
didn't she have 3 kids?
Oh yes, she had 3 kids, but my mom was a single mom with 2 kids.
I'm like, wait, were you watching the same show?
Are we watching the same show? No, yeah, my mom was a single mom with 2 kids, yes, but she had 3 kids. Yes. And but we, drawing parallels. It's essentially that, yeah. And
no,
I was
for sure.
Like,
I was just kidding.
No, I know it's fine. I was just like, whoa, like this is. I grew up watching GAC Country until 3 a.m. Like, and just like taking it all in. Like I was going back and forth. I don't even know how this happened, but I would just go back and forth between like CMT, GAC Country, BET, MTV, and just go back and forth between all of those. And then when I got bored with that, I just didn't sleep well either as a child. Can you tell my brain moves quickly? Anyway, yeah, I don't know.
That's amazing. When did you start putting out music?
Putting out music. So I have always, as an artist, only in the last 4 to 5 years, but I was always a songwriter and producer before like anything. And like, that's what I aspired to be. Like when I was in 2009, I want to say, I worked at a studio in Atlanta for like 2 years as their in-house engineer and like in-house producer. And I just would like, just do sessions after session. And I remember doing sessions. I used to do sessions for Atlantic all the time. And there's a rapper named Sci-Hi to Prince that I did when he first got signed. the guy who owned the label, I like cut my teeth as an engineer on Pro Tools and everything, doing all those sessions, like all those rap sessions for the rap. Like, it's funny because I don't know if you've heard about that video where Two Chainz and a bunch of them are talking about how the studio works in Atlanta, how rappers like just jump on each other's stuff and figure out the business and stuff later. There's this whole video in this conversation. You got to go find it. It's a pretty wild thing to watch. But I was there. That was the time period where I was there. I was like 23. And I remember when the Camaro, the new body Camaro came out, the guy I worked for, he rented a bunch of them so we could roll up to this event. And I drove that car, all these people in there, and we popped up and it had like the name of the label on the side of the car.
That's
and
dope.
We hopped out. We were like the coolest people. I was the most nervous person in the world though. And then they tried to go to, what's that famous strip club in Atlanta? And I was like, I'm not gonna do that. I'm too green and I don't even want to know what's happening in there. I was very innocent back then. Anyway, but yeah, no, it was, I had so many like amazing experiences there. I learned how to really be like what the art of songwriting was from him, because this producer was the person who did a lot of the stuff for Next, the group Next, and like Butter Love and Baby No More Crying and all that. Yeah, like those songs that played us in our heads to death as children on Z104 and all that stuff. But yeah, he's right. I remember all those stations. But yeah, he was the one who produced a lot of that stuff, and he worked with Escape and Taja Scott. And so I met her, and I would work in the studio and just watch him work with them and like learn stuff. And like I remember the first time he let me write a song for her, and she pulled it apart and hurt my feelings. But it was probably one of the greatest things she ever did, because she was like, "You're really dope, but there's some things that you do that are corny. Let me show you." And I was like, "Okay, okay." Like she was very real, but it was one of the best things that ever happened. It's also when I learned how to do Logic for real. Like I think he was on Logic 7 at that point, and I was, or 6, he was at 6 point something. And I remember he had these triple screens and these Event 8 speakers surrounding it. But then he had subwoofers built into the floors of the house, and then the walls had sand in them. So he had like 18-inch club subwoofers. You could slam that thing and walk outside and you'd have no idea, because the walls had sand in them. I'll never forget that. It was like the water.
I've never heard of that. That's crazy. Talk about soundproof.
Talk about soundproof, because he built the house, and he had the contractor wrap the pillars that the sand go into in soundproofing, and then fill it with sand. So like the walls are filled with sand. I was like, what? He called it the Starship. And I was like, wow, and it really was. You would walk in and it looked like the helm of like the Star Trek Enterprise. And it was like purple lights and everything. It was and marble floors. It was crazy. It was one of the best places to like learn about stuff. And then I watched him conduct business a lot too. And just would like pick up all these things about how he moved and like what he would let me hear and like how he moved and everything. And I think I did a lot of records there, a lot of demo records there with him for like ever, like 2-3 years. And I left, went to Cali, did some more records with other people, then came back to him again and learned some more stuff with more stuff under my belt. And I think it wasn't until when I was 26 and I moved to LA for like the 3rd time, right? Yeah, as it goes. And I did a record for this company named Sony Massenburg, which is like a subsidiary of Sony, for this artist named Teo. And we did a record for him called Written in the Stars. And it was like the first time I had like a actual like placement, if you will. Like this is like, this is a real placement. But that year before that, I think it was like a year before that, in 2011, I like was hella homeless in LA and like living on the outside of a 24-hour lockout that me and a lot of my friends who are big producers and big songwriters now, my friends Shayon and Nietzsche and Jim over at Jenga Productions, they like did this song called Cigarettes and Patios. Yeah, those are like my diehard. We used to go to Carl's Jr. for 49-cent burgers and pool our change together to eat in North Hollywood off of Magnolia. Okay. Like those
cigarettes. What's the artist's name?
Baby Jake.
Yeah, Baby Jake. Yeah, I interviewed him. Yeah. He's a cool guy.
Yeah, he's a pretty cool dude. And
he's got his newer records sound like rock and roll. I don't know if you've heard
yeah,
him.
I know. Who saw that coming? But you know, everybody like who saw that coming? But we all are like, what's a genre? I like that everybody's kind of doing the what's a genre, but I'm just gonna do whatever I want.
Whatever, exactly.
Yeah, so I don't know. The journey has been all over the place, honestly. I secretly, I can say this now because I think a lot of people who know me don't know this, but I worked for like a psychic company for like 3 years, like not as a psychic, but as a customer service agent and sometimes like sound engineer for the psychic company, but it was in the same building as Legendary Films and DC Comics. So a lot of people didn't know what floor I worked on. And I did that on purpose. I was like, yo, you don't know where I work. I work in that building right there in Burbank. You have no idea what floor I work on, but I work in that building.
I might work at DC. I might work for
And I used to come home with free comics because DC Comics would just give us free comics like to some of the floors. And so we would just come home with free comics. And so it was like really easy. Like, you know, the facade of it all is really hilarious because this lady, I worked for a company as a roadie once, and I gave her my resume, and this is called Being Too Green. And she said, honey, you know, we assume you lie. So if you tell the truth, it looks like you've done nothing. I was like, what? I don't understand. Did you just tell me to lie? What am I supposed to do right now? I don't know what to do. I was shook. My little 23, 24-year-old self was just like, what? I can't lie. I have to tell the truth. And it was just like, it was just so funny. And I'm not saying I learned how to lie, but I definitely learned how to go, don't answer questions that haven't been asked. That's a thing that I used to be mad about. There you go. It's so, I don't know. That's a random story, but I don't know. There's so many things. Ask another question.
Where were you when the coronavirus shut down the world?
Oh, okay. So I'm in California, Northern California now, but I was originally, we lived in my partners and I lived in Oakland for the last 4 or 5 years, and we got like shysted on an apartment. Like we found out later on after we left that somebody had died just outside the apartment, like a horrible murder had gone on, and they were charging us 3 times what they were charging everybody else in the apartment building. And that was like literally the spring of 2019. And so then we were like, forget this. Like we're paying $600 a month for this apartment. We should just go north. And we started like looking north to try and find somewhere that was more affordable. Now, would you believe, because I guess, I don't know why or how, but it's like hella affordable in like Northern California. Like if you go up to like where like, it's like parts of Sonoma, parts of Napa and Lake County, like there's all these places and they're gorgeous. They're just not near anything. And then my partner, she ended up going into forestry. So it kind of just made sense for us to move up there. So we moved up there, I want to say the summer of 2019, June of 2019. I went to New York to do this ballet and compose for that, came back, and I think I finished a song with Peppermint, and like the February, it was like, hey, there's this thing going on. What do you mean? And like, oh, not even, I think that was end of November, early December. Somebody was like, hey, there's something weird happening. I was like, oh, okay. And then I got into, unfortunately, a rollover car accident because I fell asleep at the wheel because I was working too much and just I don't even remember falling asleep. All I know is my body was like, wake up. And I woke up and the car was flipping on its, was just tumbling. I was like, I was just like this. I literally cheesily TV wise yelled, this is not real multiple times as the car rolled over.
Oh my goodness.
It was an ordeal. I had to like cut myself out of the seatbelt and like drop down to get out, and like somehow I found my shoes, phone charger, purse, everything, and then crawled out onto the highway in the middle of Napa. Like, okay, and so that's like the end of 2019. Like that's right before COVID happens.
You're like, this can't get any worse.
No, right? And I will say I had a great New Year. Me and my friends made this amazing song at my home studio there, and it was really awesome. But I remember saying to them, I was like, yo, something is off. Something feels off. I feel like something's about to go down. But we had already moved out to the middle of nowhere, so it was kind of fine. And people were just coming to visit us. February comes, I got hella sick and I didn't know what was going on. And then that started the saga of me being sick with COVID for like months and months and months.
Really?
I had pneumonia. I was in and out of the hospital. Like I had like muscular atrophy because I couldn't walk because I couldn't breathe. So I had to like lay down and like check my pulse and oxygen levels at home. It was a whole thing. Like I had to like,
wow,
learn how to breathe again. I had like this tube that had a ball in it that I would like use to strengthen my lungs to see how strong they were getting.
Yeah, you get to blow into the thing to kind of get it to go up.
Yeah, it was wild. It was that year. 2020 sucked ass. I cannot tell.
Oh my gosh.
It like held up stuff that this is gonna be my big break. And then and everything just shut down. And I was just like, wow. And now you're stuck inside. And my partners were trying to take care of me and I was hella sick and it took so long to heal from it. I did. I'm doing so much better now, but I have like this I looked at it. It makes me like motivated to like never take life for granted. I didn't really feel like I did before, but really now I really like after that happened, like, I don't really know how to express like what it's like to like, a lot of us will be like, oh, I'm feeling sick, but I can just push through it. You can't push through a pneumonia. That's not how that works.
Right.
But that's my mentality normally. It's like, I'll just push through it. It'll be fine. And then two times I made myself sicker because I kept trying to like get up and start moving before I should. Mm-hmm. And then I would be like back down with fevers again. And I was like, man, this is wild. So now after that, like, I just wanted to push. Like, I don't know, like when I started to finally like get better, and I climbed there's a place called Lansing, California, where there's a volcano there, and I climbed it after having pneumonia the year before. Like almost a year later, I summited an 11,000 foot like volcano. I was like, wow. That's the family I come from. The Black women in my family taught me to be like that. Like nothing holds us back. Like we can't, like, you gonna try. If you die, they gonna be like, she tried, she pushed, she gave everything. And yeah, and then stuff kind of just like 2021 hit, and it was like, oh, okay, we trying to pop off now. Like, we trying to do something. I went in the studio with this Stone Store record artist named Sudan Archives, and I was in there with her a lot. Through June, we did like, and like it was like amazing and such a cool experience. And I can't wait for that stuff to come out. I think they're finishing up that project now. And that was like, that COVID thing made me show up to that in a way I think I may not have shown up before, mm-hmm. where I probably would have just shown up and like used their equipment and just hung out and did whatever and just tried to like, put my foot in the door and whatever. And she said, come through and jam. And I said, can I bring equipment? She said, yeah. How much you trying to bring? I was like, I just want to make sure I can bring equipment. My studio setup is like very portable. Like, I have a SKG case that has all my racks modules and everything in it. And mm-hmm. I'll just pop that into the back of the car at the mic and like a keyboard and like suddenly pop up on you and like, I'm ready to go. And she was like, what is that? I was like, well, that's a Neve 1073 copy. That's a Focusrite ISA1 channel. This one here is a Pultec copy EQPA. This one is she was like, what? How do you know about all this? I was like, I don't know. I like how sound works. I don't know. Yeah. And we made some cool stuff. And that kind of popped into, then I think right when I got back, I got the call about the Reba record. Yes. When I got called back from that, I got the call about the Reba record and they were like, we need you to finish it in like 3 days. And I was like, what? Like, finish it in 3 days. I got the call the 6th of June and I needed to have it in by the 7th. And I was like, there's no way I'm going to be able to do that. And they were like, okay, we'll say the 11th. And then I finished it in 2 days. And they were like, wow. Oh, okay. I just didn't know whether they were going to like it or not. I was like, I'm not going to do, like, shout out to props to David Audet and DJ Tracy Young. They have a very particular classic, like, dance sound, but that's just not what I sound like. And so I was like, do y'all realize I'm not going to do it that way? But Reba and Justin, her manager, they were like, no, we kind of want to see what you do with it. We think it would be interesting. And I kind of just made it like this, like, bedroom soul pop song, I guess, if you will. Like I have a friend named, well, I know there's a guy who was friends with my roommates that at a co-op I was at in Oakland. His name is Still Woozy. And like he shot the goodie bag video in our living room at the co-op we lived in, and then he blew up, like just still woozy, just blew up. We were like, is that Sven? Sven is still woozy now. Okay, cool. And like he has this whole sound, and I was just like, oh yeah, I might do it a little bit like that for Reba. And I found the Be the Queen sample in the second verse, and I accidentally chopped it and was hitting. Wow. Yeah, because I have this like little MIDI man thing here. And I set it up with what is it, Serato? It's like synced up with Serato, and it rolled I pulled the sample in there, and I was like, I don't know, I'll just pull the whole song in and see what comes up. And I hit somewhere in the center, and it was like, Be the Queen. I was like, what? And I remember sending to Justin the first version of it, which was a little too clubby and a little too hard, just to be like, Be the Queen with the bass. And it was just like, he was like, this is dark. And I was like, all right, cool, I know what to do. And I hit my friend up, Mia, and I was like, all right, can you put some lap steel on it? Just go on and make the guitars meow for me and do a little bit of mandolin, and I'm gonna lay some guitars, and I'll lay some other. There's a lot of guitar layers in that song. Like, I feel like I knew the assignment. That's all I did. You know what I'm saying? Like, I grew up listening to Yak Country. I know all the pop country divas. I grew up dancing to Fancy. I'm telling you, I have been prepared for this. I know how to do the background vocal. I know how to do everything. I was like, I'm ready. I know how to mix this. I know how to get this right. I don't know. It's honestly, I wake up every day and still can't believe that you never know what the thing is going to be. Push, 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 put your head down. Push, 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 put your head down. And then a song, Reba? Really? Okay. I don't know. Yeah.
That's so cool. That is so cool. I love it.
It's wild.
Congratulations. That's amazing. And thank you so much for hanging out with me. I really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, I know. I thank you for having me. My brain moves at 90 miles a minute, but I appreciate you trying to keep up.
I love it. I have one more question for you. I want to know if you have any advice for aspiring artists.
Advice for aspiring artists, I would say one of the things that I realized that I think was the most amazing and eye-opening part of my career was when I left LA. I was there for 8-9 years trying to make it happen off and on, right? And I feel like sometimes when you go somewhere, you learn so much, and I learned so much there, but then you can lose yourself. I think it's really important to keep who you are and what you want for your heart in process and perspective, and kind of always aim for that, because you're gonna change and grow and go through a lot of things, but you yourself have to know that there's kind of this aim. Like Reba said the other day in this interview, she was just like, what does successful look like for you? Like, there's all these messages coming in that were telling me what success looked like for me, and I would listen to them and still didn't feel comfortable. Then I left and moved to the country and like just was walking around writing songs and making beats for Reba and the countryside. And I was like, this is the vibe. And suddenly shit pops off. And I guess my point is, like, there are going to be a lot of things that really convince you that you shouldn't do you, but you should do that. You should keep doing you. Like, try your best to ignore that stuff as much. Take pieces of stuff and go, okay, but also I can still be me, and maybe that thing isn't for me. Your path is not anybody else's path. It is your own. Your path is not anybody else's path. It is your own. Know yourself and know your own path. Yeah, I think that would be the thing I would say. That's long-winded, but know yourself and know your own path. That's what I would say.